Hi, everyone. This is the Michael and Rusty Show. And today we're going to talk about the Grey Cup. And that's happening this Sunday with a brief recap of what happened with the two finals in the East and in the West. As well, we're going to have a discussion on the Bo Levi Mitchell trade from Calgary to Hamilton and what that will mean for the next season, as well as the update on the Hamilton Bulldogs arena. They're trying to get a new facility built in Hamilton for junior hockey. So we'll see how that goes. I'm joined, of course, by Michael Willoughby, my nephew and co-host. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Uncle S.
So today, let's talk about the Grey Cup. We're going to see the Toronto Argonauts, the winners of the East, playing Winnipeg, the winners of the West, in Regina on Sunday night. And this is going to be a very, very important game. Winnipeg, of course, is playing to win 3 Grey Cups in a row, which would make them officially a dynasty. It hasn't happened, of course, since the Edmonton Eskimos won the Grey Cup 5 consecutive times with Warren Moon and Hugh Campbell in the late 70s and early 80s. So it's going to be a great game. Let's talk about it first. Your thoughts, Michael, on the game.
Well, there's 2 well-deserving teams, Toronto and Winnipeg. Obviously, like you mentioned, Winnipeg is looking to become the first three-peat Grey Cup champs that's in this kind of length since, like you mentioned, the Edmonton Eskimos in the late 70s, early 80s. And you got the Toronto Argonauts, who has probably the best Grey Cup record of all time in the history of the CFL. I think they're 17-6. The winning percentage is over the 710 mark. I think 713 the last time I checked. It's going to be a very interesting Grey Cup, even though on paper it does look like Winnipeg has all the momentum in the world. They throttled BC in the West Final, and Toronto squeaked out a win against Montreal. And Toronto's lineup is not as stellar, but at the same time they were the more deserving team to win the East after what has happened throughout most of the season. Winnipeg has been the class of the CFL by a country mile, or let alone by a cross-country mile, like in the Trans-Canada Highway, I should say, there's a reference. You look from Zach Collaros, who just won the MVP once again, to the offensive line, Stanley Bryan, for the 3rd straight year, fourth straight time. He has won the most outstanding lineman, being Brendan Revenberg of the Tiger Cats the other night. And you got always a stout defense led by Willie Jefferson and Adam Bighill. Many people have thought last season, or during the offseason, that Winnipeg was going to take a bit of a back turn of things and not being as very dominant. Well, Winnipeg has proved again that they can still be the class of the West, and let alone the class of the league. When we tool well with great coaching like Michael Shea and amongst others in the coaching staff of Winnipeg. So yeah, like I said, it's on paper. I think it's going to be a slobber knocker in favor of Winnipeg, but it will be an interesting matchup, especially when Andrew Harris will make his return to face his former team at the biggest game of the year. So
Yeah, I think that
yeah,
for Toronto, it's crucial that Andrew Harris has a big game with AJ Ouellette. They can potentially have quite the 1-2 punch. But Winnipeg's defense is very stout, both against the pass and the run. I think that we're going to see probably the difference in the game being the special teams. I think that Winnipeg is vulnerable to the big return. We saw that with Terry Williams in the West Final, returning the missed extra point, 126 yards for the 2-point anti-conversion. I don't know exactly what they're calling
yeah,
it, but it's the 2-point
we call it a
defensive.
deuce.
It's a deuce, yeah. So definitely, I mean, that's going to be a big wild card. It's going to be special teams and who can run the ball. Zach Collaros has missed a couple of days of practice. His ankle injury is a concern, but he says he's going to be ready to go. And I think we saw with Brown and Prokop, they certainly have depth in their backups. So I don't think that there's a real concern for Winnipeg if they can get all their ducks in a row, so to speak. Brady Oliveira, he had 130 yards on 20 carries last week. And, he's been sensational. You have Dalton Sean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. He was rookie of the year, great young receiver. They have a lot of weapons. I think that Toronto's punting game might be a problem. I think that Winnipeg generally has a better kicking game, but the return game is a concern for both teams. Brandon Banks has to really have an amazing game on returns for Toronto. I think Toronto has to make more big plays, and I think that it has to come through Banks. Curly Gittins as well, Curly Gittins Jr., the fine receiver that they have. They've got the potential to give Winnipeg a run for their money, but Winnipeg has too many pluses, I think, in terms of form this year. It's going to take exceptional play, less turnovers, a good running game by Harris, and also they're going to have to just be better on special teams. So I think it's going to be great. I think that Trevor Harris as well had a great game for Montreal in the loss. He threw for, I guess it was 300 yards, and it's going to be the conditions as well. I checked with my online assistant, and it was indicated that the weather in Regina should be -6 tomorrow, or Sunday evening, of course, with partly cloudy skies. So if the conditions are good, I think we're going to see quite the offensive game.
Mm-hmm.
So from that standpoint, what is your prediction for the game?
If Toronto defense, who has have a lot of good players in their own right, if they can contain Brady Oliveira and Zach and keep Zach Collaros from making the big plays, I rely on the key throws. If you give him off time, I do think Toronto may squeak with a victory, and it's also dependent on McLeod Bethel Thompson play as well, because he has been up and down, especially in the postseason at times. And you may never know, the writing could be on the wall with him as a starter for the near future because he's at the age right now that it could possibly give him at least another year or two. But there's a certain guy named last name Mitchell will probably take note if they want to go to Toronto. But
Yeah.
we'll discuss in a sec. But for me, I think Winnipeg is a bit too much, and I think the final score is going to be 30-10.
30 to
Winnipeg.
10. Okay. I think it's going to be a little closer. I'm saying 33 to 28 for Winnipeg, especially if the conditions are good. I see there's going to be big plays on special teams, and I think that the running game is going to be critical. And both teams are solid on defense, but I think that you're going to see big plays, play action passes. I have no doubt that we're going to see a tremendous most valuable player, whoever that might be, in the Grey Cup. I don't think we're going to see a defensive struggle at all.
No.
So I think that's a fair commentary on what's going to happen. I'm sure that the Saskatchewan fans are going to be torn between supporting the West, of course, and supporting their arch rivals. But it's going to be a showcase, I think, and a good end to the season. So let's move on. We just briefly talked about Bo Levi Mitchell. There was a trade in the CFL between the Hamilton Tiger-Cats and the Calgary Stampeders for the rights to Bo Levi Mitchell. Essentially, this is going to allow the Tiger-Cats to exclusively negotiate with Bo Levi Mitchell until the free agency period starts in February. So that window goes until February, and it's going to be interesting to see whether Mitchell does decide to sign with Hamilton. He indicated that he would like to try free agency regardless of this deal. Hamilton traded their third-round draft pick for the upcoming draft next year, plus a fourth-round draft pick in 2024, as well as future considerations. So it is a sizable depth move in terms of trading future draft picks for Bo Levi Mitchell, but it does give the Tiger-Cats an opportunity to put their offer on the table. Just one thing about what you said about McLeod Bethel-Thompson. He's 34, and I heard a report over the week that he is considering retirement after the game, and I think particularly if the Argonauts happen to win, I think he might decide at that point to ride into the sunset with a Grey Cup title. So Mitchell's moves are going to be dictated by the game as much as anything. Hamilton's running a risk in not signing Mitchell after making this deal, but I think it is a gambit by Hamilton to do that. So what's your thoughts on it?
When I heard the news, I was at Jackson Square here in Hamilton having a brunch, and I looked over my phone, and it was on Twitter, and I couldn't believe it that Bo Levi Mitchell was coming to Hamilton. But when I read it further, it was Bo Levi Mitchell's rights was going to Hamilton. Yeah. So just to clarify for anybody that was very skeptical of the Mitchell acquisition, Bo Levi Mitchell is technically not a Hamilton Tiger-Cat yet. He is a pending free agent. It's just his rights were switched from Calgary to Hamilton for, as I mentioned, those draft picks. I do believe if Bo Levi Mitchell decides to stay put with Hamilton and sign the contract, it's not going to be by the numbers that Bo Levi Mitchell is accustomed to salary wise when he was a regular starter in Calgary. I think it's going to be probably under 300K or less. And if he does stick around with Hamilton, I think he will ultimately become the number one quarterback because what's gone on with Dane Evans, that's a tough judgment on their part because Dane Evans does not deserve to be tossed around like salad, tossed salad literally by the Hamilton management. But we shall see how things develop on Dane Evans' end. But with Bo Levi Mitchell coming to Hamilton, if he intends to sign with the Ticats, I think it will be indication that Hamilton is going to go all in, as it should, for the 2023 Grey Cup. And you got a veteran presence, just as it's like the biggest from a veteran presence standpoint. It was the biggest acquisition since Hammy Burrs came to town.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a decade ago, and you can even go further back to '98, like late '97, after the Grey Cup. Actually, I think Dane McManus and Darren Flutie came to the Ticats from Edmonton via free agency, I believe.
Yeah.
So this will be. It turns out for the event Hamilton wins the Grey Cup next year, and if Mitchell signs, it will be the best thing that they have done in the quarterback position since McManus. But that's way down in the future, and it's
Yes.
too early to indicate. But the thing is about, and one thing about Mitchell, can he be the guy that we have all accustomed to see terrorize the Tiger Cats in the past, whether it was in Calgary or up in Tim Hortons Field? If he can be the at least 3/4 as good as Bo Levi Mitchell was in the past few years before he has been cutting the injury bug, I think it would be a great thing for Hamilton. But personality wise, I know this is not a personality test or anything. This guy turned out to be, excuse my language, a dick towards several of my friends back in the day. With Bo Levi Mitchell was offered autographs from the fans. Like the fans wanted, the fans wanted Bo Levi Mitchell to sign autographs, and he gave them a smirk or a thing. But like, it's going to be interesting to see how if Mitchell is going to sign with Hamilton and how things will flow up with the fans.
I don't know about that incident, but I know that players do react to opposing fans differently. I think it does go up the food chain. If it's an average player, I don't think that the average player has a problem. But if you're a star, there are demands in terms of one's situation and one's focus. I'm not defending him on the particular matter that you're talking about, but that happens. What I'm interested in and what you've talked about is the situation with Dane Evans, because he's scheduled to make in the range of 400,000 next year, on the assumption that he was going to be the starter. And if indeed they sign Bo Levi Mitchell, I do believe it's going to be for a discount in terms of what he used to make in Calgary as the de facto starter. But you're going to see a problem for them in terms of keeping Dane Evans with Bo Levi Mitchell. They also have Matthew Schultz, and I think that Matthew Schultz ideally would be a perfect backup, regardless of who is the starter. But I do believe that if Mitchell is signed, you're going to see movement it could either be a trade to Toronto or a trade to Ottawa, depending on how the Grey Cup shakes out. And that'll give some spice to the East next year, just to see if Dane Evans is going to be on a revenge tour against Hamilton.
Mm.
And I, for me, knowing that Bo Levi Mitchell is only 32, it's not like you're trading for a guy who's in an armchair. He's had some issues, particularly I guess it was with his elbow, if I don't, or his shoulder, on his throwing arm at one point in the last couple of years. But I think he's a tremendous quarterback. I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Mm-hmm. But they really do need to put it all in, because that defense over the year was outstanding.
Yeah.
I look at their running defense. Like one of the big problems for a good 10 years for Hamilton was that they couldn't stop the run. Mm-hmm. And this defense was outstanding and has been outstanding for the last few years. So, it's a window, but when you haven't won the Grey Cup in 22 years, you got to kick either the door down or the window out.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of intrigue. I didn't think it was going to be a slam dunk. The minute I heard that he hadn't signed a contract, I knew that this is a gamble, and Dane could very well just be starter by default because he's under contract.
Yeah.
But the dominoes will continue to fall as a result of whatever happens after the Grey Cup and what availability there is for Bo Levi Mitchell to go elsewhere. As well, Saskatchewan is another target. So we'll see what happens with that.
Absolutely.
Let's talk now about the Bulldogs. You mentioned this in a earlier podcast that we had about the Hamilton Bulldogs of the OHL looking to possibly get a new facility in Hamilton for junior hockey, and you have an update for us.
Well, it is a bit of a shocker update. Case in point, for those of you who don't know, the last few years, the city of Hamilton were looking to get rid of assets of the First Ontario Center, Hamilton Place, now known as First Ontario Concert Hall, in the Convention Center. And Winnipeg was one of the three groups that was part of the bidding process to get we call it Cops Coliseum, and the old Hamilton Place and the Hamilton Convention Center had merged all into one. And ultimately, Winnipeg won the bid outright. And Winnipeg, for the last year or so, has tried to keep in dialogue with the three tenants of the arena, and that is the Hamilton Bulldogs, aforementioned, the Hamilton Honey Badgers of the Canadian Elite Basketball League, and the Toronto Rock of the National Lacrosse League. Apparently, there was no communication for about a year. Prior to that, the Bulldogs were promised. I don't know if the Toronto Rock was mentioned. I think the Rock made a statement a few days ago, which I will get to that in a second, that there was a planning about the renovation process and they were going to do it by phases. The Bulldogs received that word that they were going to have the season continue to play in the arena by the virtue of phases, and it was going to be up to a 3-year process. Well, apparently over this past weekend, Women's Day weekend, right after the hockey game between the Hamilton Bulldogs and the Mississauga Steelheads, of course, Bulldogs won in overtime. The news came about, and I didn't cover with this news until like after I got home from work, and apparently the communication management there at Winnipeg didn't do the proper diligence of informing the Bulldogs, Toronto Rock, and the Hamilton Honey Badgers to get out of the building for the next 20 months, because they're going to be, as of starting late summer, early fall, approximately around September-ish of next year, the arena is going to be an extensive renovation, and they are telling the Bulldogs now that the Bulldogs was going to be, along with the Toronto Rock and Honey Badgers, to be leaving the arena for 20 months and to look for a place to play in. The Toronto Rock apparently was the one of the three teams. So I don't know anything about the Honey Badgers at this point. They haven't received any statements yet from them, but the Toronto Rock released a statement and saying that they have already pre-planned this, and they are looking to get a new location very soon, probably by the end of the season.
Okay.
Whereas the Bulldogs, they were promised to do like in going in phases, like I mentioned earlier in this topic. Right. And apparently that has been scrapped without further notice. And knowing me being a former employee one time with the Ontario Hockey League, I was an intern with the Steelheads. There is a special process to put request dates for scheduling with months in advance, and that in this case it was December. And apparently, when this news came out, Michael Anlyle, the owner of the Hamilton Bulldogs, was going to send in request, and then the news broke out, as I mentioned, that they had to be relocated within 20 month absence from First Ontario Center. From what I've heard, is that it could be Mountain Arena and Hamilton Mountain, right, as the only arena left standing from the original OHL era to host a regular season game.
Yeah,
because the other one was the Bottom Forum, downtown East Hamilton, and that was demolished in the late 1970s. So having Hamilton, the Mountain Arena, the Dave Underchuck Mountain Arena, precisely, they're the second largest arena in the entire city, and there's going to be different logistics that it needs to be addressed, but they do have the sides and they do have the rink, which is most important, because you got to have a certain size of to have an OHL game. And there's also another possibility of a Brantford Civic Arena, which could be in the cards as well, because Brantford Civic Center is connected to Hamilton in a way of when the Finn Cups went from Hamilton to St. Catharines and then to Brantford to become the Alexanders, right, in the early 1980s. So there's some connection there. And there's also a possibility of Brampton. I think it's the CAA Center, the old Powerade Center where the battalion used to be before they went to North Bay. But the problem is there's too much commute to, especially going in down the QEW in the winter time, and let alone in rush hour. Yeah, well, most games will be at 7.
I think that if the Mountain Arena is available and Adlauer is, committed to keeping the franchise in Hamilton, I think that they should try to keep the team playing in Hamilton while the first Ontario Centre is being renovated.
Mhm.
I was at the old Barton Street Arena. You weren't. I was at a circus, and the elephant in the circus took a big dump. It was 90 degrees, 30 Celsius in the building, and it was horrific. But I survived. So I remember that arena, and I've been at games at the Mountain Arena as well. And I think it is a fine facility. I'm not familiar after the Dave Andrechuk rebranding of the arena, and whatever renovations have happened there. I've seen a few pictures online of it, and if they can keep the team there, I mean, it's a very intimate building. It'll be quite interesting to watch junior hockey there. And the owner of Hamilton, Anlauer, he also is rumored to be in a group that's interested in buying the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
So that's another thing on his plate. But I think that there's no reason why, with the run of success that Hamilton's had in recent years, that junior hockey should leave Hamilton. I think that I don't like the idea that there was such a bureaucratic hiccup that there wasn't proper communication between was it HECFI you said?
Hugh Peg.
UPEG, and and the team and the teams. Especially when you have three tenants, it's really important to have that covered. So, do you, of all the options that you just laid out, what do you think is going to be the most likely scenario for Hamilton?
For the Bulldogs, there's the shoe in terms of shoe ends, it would be Brampton because it's OHL ready. However, the Mountain Arena, which is suited around between 1,900 and 2,500 people, they with extra dough of money from the owner himself and the city of Hamilton, because remember, the city of Hamilton owns Mountain Arena. It's not the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs are affiliated with the Kilty Bees, who ironically plays at Mountain Arena. They will likely have to seek another location, like say Shadok Arena, or another arena to stay with if the Bulldogs eventually play at Mountain Arena. If Mr. Allen chooses to go to the Mountain Arena. So in terms of move-in ready, I think it is safe to say it will be Brampton. But out of the good conscience of Michael Anlauer, who has done a remarkable job for the city of Hamilton, is just as good as an owner as Bob Young is to the Ticats. He has done an excellent job. And I think out of the good conscience, like I said, I think they will go with within city of Hamilton and choose Mountain Arena, but it has to get a lot of money to do a little bit of an expansion and do TLC. One couple quick things to mention. The OHL in 60 podcast, which I listened to, it's a great insight with about the league, all the news and whereabouts of the league. And they're hosted by two guys that has done the Hamilton podcast at the Hamilton Bulldogs audio network. And they have, one of the guys has mentioned that towards the end of the topic, because they were covering this matter as well. It's like it is very likely that we'll probably get a word next week about who Mr. Ohio is going to have the Bulldogs play in. So it could be Mount Arena because they're going to have a guest from the Bulldogs to talk about it. So we shall see, but that'll be that. And one of my friends from the social media verse, Twitter, his name is Scott McLean. He did a tour of the Mountain Arena, and it looked, and I have been in the Mountain Arena a few times myself watching the Bulldogs exhibition games, and when they played there and they killed TVs in the regular season, and it is an intimate setting. Imagine with 2,000, 3,000 fans literally packing the barn every single night. It's going to be as more intimate than what First Ontario Center is never capable of being.
Yes.
So that's to be interesting. So Lionel should probably give the word up to the Bulldog supporters next week or the coming weeks or so.
Okay, so keep us updated. We'll definitely talk about this on a future show. Let's stop there. Thank you again for your time. And thank you, Michael.
No
We're
problem.
going to have the Grey Cup aftermath and more news on the NFL and the NHL as the weeks progress. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. And until next time, we appreciate it. Thanks again, Michael, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye, everyone.